Hi, and welcome to the first episode of Generic Awful High School. My name is Birdie Scoot.
And I'm Ducky Go Lucky.
Oh, hi, Ducky.
Hi,
Welcome.
Scoot.
And also we have our good friend
Almond Miller.
Matt Almond Miller. He's the man.
Hello.
Man.
All right, so our first story is none other than Miss White. So this is a real teacher, and we're using fake names here, that we both really did have back in high school. Actually, I had her as a drama teacher, and...
I had her as English and drama.
Right.
Bad time.
So this was back when I was a sophomore in high school, maybe, something like that. So, drama teacher. So I was in a musical. I had gotten one of the, not a big part, but a part. And Ducky, what were you doing?
I was a princess. I was not a major part.
Oh, I thought you might have been a set crew. But anyways, we did not have
Yet.
right. We did not have a theater yet. So we were doing all of these practices in a classroom. So Miss White, how do you explain her? She was this large woman who had this white spiky hair, like Guy Fieri hair, and so heavy set, but had lots of energy. So she was always running around and was very dramatic. So perfect fit to be a drama teacher. And we were in this cramped room, and I honestly didn't have a problem with doing the dances and the things we were practicing in there, but she was real irritated that we'd not have our theater yet, which was being built. So one day she got a phone call, and we were doing our own thing, we were practicing stuff, but she started yelling, like screaming, like into the phone, like way unnecessary. To think that there was a person on the other end listening to her shenanigans, but she was like, "What? What do you mean? No! So she's yelling to the phone. She's like looking at it, when you're really angry, you're like talking to the mouthpiece. And the theater was not going to open for another month longer, so we couldn't do our practices in there. So she's screaming. We're all, stop what we're doing, just watching her. And, this happened a lot. But this one phone call, so maybe the second time they delayed it, this one phone call, she was eating a banana. And she's yelling at the phone, she's cursing, she slams the phone down, and she takes the banana and chucks it at the wall. And she was like out of there. She was just like hustling out of there, like, where is she going? And so we're like, what in the world?
Banana splat.
That's good. So she just takes off down the hall, and we're like, what the heck is going on? So we had one guy named Bernie chase after her, and she was gone. She was not coming back. Oh.
And Miss White had the most peculiar walk. She admittedly kind of waddled. And so when she, waddled really, really quickly, it was like she was storming off with her arms kind of churning. And And Bernie was always very good at imitating Miss White's particular style of walking.
Yes.
It was a little bit intimidating. It was like a charging rhinoceros.
Right. It was dramatic.
Yeah.
It was good.
Filled with drama to her very core.
Yeah. So she had lots of problems with the students. And the students, they're high school students. We were all crazy. But there was a few students that just had a few problems of showing up on time or being late. And in particular, there was like two students that would never show up, or at least they'd come very late. And she started like noticing and getting really irritated, and she'd be like, "What, Bernie? Why is he not here? That's it. He's done. He's fired. He's out. He's gone." He's like, she'd be cutting like main cast members like months before, and then you'd come back and be like, "Oh, I was in the bathroom. Sorry, Miss White." And she's like, "Okay, you're rehired. You're back. Okay, fine."
There was a particular student, we'll call him DK, who I think got fired 4 different times. Once, I think it was dress rehearsal the night before the show opened. She decided she had had enough. He was out for good, never coming back. And inevitably, somebody would talk her back into bringing on whatever crew member or cast member she'd fired.
Yeah, that happened a lot before, like right before the show. Just firing she fired like the main like actress, the like
She did.
main like support.
Yeah, because one of the main actresses was a cheerleader, and obviously there were some conflicts, so
Yeah.
she would just get fired every time she had cheer practice.
she progressively lost it as the whole musical practice went on. Towards the end, where we're about to have our performances, we were finally in the theater, but we were dress rehearsals, and she would still be there, but she wanted to experience it like the audience. So she would sit in different seats of the house and then comment from her seat. So oftentimes she'd be sitting in the back seat, like 20 rows back, and she'd she'd stop things or like give comments, and she'd be like shouting like, "Hey, you need to cheat left." We're like, "We can't hear you," but she would just persist. She'd be there for like 5 hours. It was the longest practice. I don't even, why were they so long? We were there from like 4 to 10 or 11.
They were really inefficient practices, and she had different priorities than I've ever seen for a director. I remember one day we spent the entire day just doing transitions between sets. So that basically is just running crew over and over again. And she would make people go to their opening positions, then jog over to their closing positions, then run off as fast as we could do it over and over again. Every time there was a mistake, we'd start from the beginning of the play again. It was one of the most awful days of practice I've ever experienced.
Oh yeah, that was bad.
That was for the one act, actually.
Yep. And when it was around like 7 or 8, we'd all be getting hungry, and we were like, "Miss White, we're gonna go get dinner. All right." So she'd be like, "No one can get food. You all have to stay." And we're like, "We're here to like 10 or 11." We're just like losing it.
We needed everybody there.
Yes, even people that were not even close to being on stage, but that's how it was. So that did develop. One of my favorite things about the musicals was us being hungry. So I remember specifically it was me and another girl. We'll call her.
Another girl?
Oh, I am a guy.
Scoot is actually a female. We're learning new things.
Yes, my Scandinavian heritage has blessed me with a very deep, rumbly voice. Yes. No, we'll call her. I don't know, Mongolia. So me and Mongolia were starving. And one day at the front of the theater, I don't know what they were doing. They had these snacks that were, I don't know, for some event, but we found out. We were like sniffing it out, and we were starving. But we were in our costume, in full dress rehearsal, and we go up, and we're like, "Oh, should we do it?"
Just to jump in real fast, Miss White had very strict rules about eating in costume. Namely, you don't do it. You do not have a single potato chip if you're in any piece of your costume.
Yes.
Okay, continue, Scoot.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and also the costume lady, who's like Swan's mom, was very strict. She's a scary lady.
Might say draconian?
Oh, that's a good word. And so we were like, it doesn't matter, we're starving. So we got food, and we were like, "Oh my gosh, we're so bad." And we were like, "Where do we eat?" We were just like, didn't want to get caught. So first we were eating in the hall, and then we were like, "Oh, this isn't good enough." So we ran back to we had this practice room, and we ended up like going back behind like these steps, behind these curtains, and like like all huddled together, like, "Oh my gosh, I've got food on my costume, and I like it." And I don't know how it came out, but I just developed a lovely song that kind of went like that. I've got food on my costume, and I like it. I got food in my costume, and I like it. And I came up with all these verses like, "I got spaghetti in my hair and food everywhere. I got juice on my shoes. I'm gonna eat how I choose." So it took off, this whole idea, because everyone was starving, and it wasn't long before like our opening performances, we would have the whole cast sing the song.
Everybody would be singing it. People would be popping into the middle to improvise verses off the spot. It became the anthem of our show.
Yep.
Unofficially.
And oh man, I felt so bad about it because you'd look and see the costume directors like, look.
We even
terrible.
had a verse in Turkish.
You did?
Yeah.
What? Well, I didn't even know that.
You knew about that.
Okay, well, I forgot. So that was fun. That's what I remember most. But another thing that she did that was just insane. She literally just like lost it. Like, it was back after one of the performances, and I walked back because I got off stage early or something like that, and I walk into our practice room, and Miss White is going to all of the tables in the room and taking everything on it and throwing it in the trash can. Now, this was scripts. people's phones, homework, backpacks. It's all going in the can.
Shoes.
Oh my, yeah. People's shoes. Someone's looking for their shoes. I'm like, oh, it's probably in the trash can. And I'm like, Miss.
Everybody's stuff.
Yeah.
Props, set pieces.
No. Oh my gosh.
Just everything. She just swept the whole table.
Yeah.
Off.
It was insane. People going through the garbage like, oh, gotta get my wallet. It's thrown away.
Yeah, that's
She
that's
was
the
in
story
crazy.
for
Like,
you.
yeah, she quit the year after, at least from drama. But you had her as an English teacher,
I
right?
had her as an English teacher, and that was an experience. That was my first year in high school. I was a freshman, and the first thing that everybody noticed when we went in the room is that she had these strange marks around waist level on her t-shirt. She always wore a polo t-shirt, and it was like these big brown horizontal lines, and we were really confused by it. You know, people were kind of asking each other like, did she have a thing? Did something happen? You know, it looked like it looked really strange, and we realized really quickly why that was the case, because we had these really tiny high school desks, you know, the ones where the chair is basically welded to the desk itself.
Right. You get a 2 by 4 inch place to write things on.
Exactly. All you need. And she would come storming down the aisles to get right in people's faces whenever they did something wrong, except the desks were too close together. So these nasty high school desks had rubbed these brown lines just all the way around like a hula hoop around her polo t-shirts.
Oh my gosh.
And this happened every day. All of her shirts were staged like that because she would just come on through the aisles. She never widened them or anything.
That's so nasty.
It was pretty gross. Another thing that happened the very first day, we had a classmate named Samed. He was an Indian guy, and oops, that was a real name.
It could
No,
be
it
anyone.
wasn't. Could be anyone. A common name.
Yes.
And she looked at the roll sheet to call people's names. She was trying to learn people's names, so you know she would look down and then she would say their name. And that happened all the time, but with this person, she kept on calling him Samdi. And she said it so many times, and he corrected her every time that the rest of the class just started calling him Samdi because they thought it was funny. And that poor kid got called Samdi all 4 years of high school. People were still calling him that at graduation. So that was one legacy that got started there.
Poor Samdi.
Poor Samdi. Another thing, she was a really bad teacher. She had very particular ways about her. One was whenever she asked us to write something down, she believed that the only proper way to do that was to mime writing it down in midair in giant letters. I think she wanted to give us enough time to write or something, but it was the most ridiculous looking thing. She'd repeat everything under her breath after she said it. She had very, very particular rules about how to structure papers. So I've never seen a paper planned so exactly and minutely as she taught us to write opening paragraphs. It was always, you know, like, here's the opening line, then you write a transition statement line.
Yep.
Then there's so it's very, very over structured, and you must have a transition statement between every sentence of your opening paragraph and pretty much between any sentence ever. You just waste an entire sentence on saying nothing so that you can get to your next thought. That's how English works.
Well, of course.
Learned so much.
You know, there's a skill in being able to say nothing.
That's true. She was training us all to be politicians.
There we go.
Yeah. Another thing was, I remember one time she had us take all of our previous papers to compile them together into one big document. And so most of it was straightforward. You just collected all of your work for pretty much most of the year and put it all together. And she had particular names she wanted things to be called. One of the items on here was 2 copies of Romeo and Juliet essay. And so I was, you know, trying to be all careful, so I made sure that the name was Romeo and Juliet essay on each of my copies of the Romeo and Juliet essay. Turn this in, get it back a little bit later. Everybody is just stumped at this point. She had scribbled all over all of the pages these indecipherable symbols in single letters, and we didn't know what they meant. And we had these arbitrary scores on the top of the papers, and I noticed that for my Romeo and Juliet essay, I'd gotten 0 points.
Oh, man.
And so we're all asking her, and she's getting annoyed that we don't know her notation because she knew it, so why didn't we? And the symbol that she had written on my Romeo and Juliet essay was what looked like just a pie symbol. It looked like pie. I asked a bunch of different people. That was all they saw. I wish I still had a picture of it. I don't know if I do anymore.
Well, didn't you know that pi, all the Greek symbols, they stood for something like pi is run on a sentence?
Well, in this case, pi was not run on sentence. In this case, pi was supposed to be T-I, capital T, lowercase I.
Oh.
Just written really sloppily, and that meant that I'd written the title wrong, so I got 0 points on my essay. And the reason that I had written the title wrong is that she did not want me to write Romeo and Juliet essay on each of my 2 copies of the Romeo and Juliet essay. She wanted me to write 2 copies of Romeo and Juliet essay on each copy of my Romeo and Juliet essay.
So you get a 0.
A 0.
Oh my gosh. Wasn't that like a big paper too?
Oh, it was a big paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Everybody did poorly though, so I guess it all worked out. Yeah, that was Miss White. The screaming, the dramatic, the oh gosh, I never want her as a teacher again.
The ever entertaining?
Sure, why not? We'll go with that.
All right, stay tuned for next week where we talk about someone else from generic awful high school. Goodbye.